Now that we've had a physical example, so we can just embed it in our brains a little bit better on what it looks like when things within our lives, when we get into troubled waters and hot times, that it comes back out again. Let's look closer again at what Philippians 4, 8, and 9 is saying if we break it down verse by verse a little bit better. Whatsoever things are true, what's agreeable to the scriptures, to what God has to say. Whatsoever things are noble and honest, being of high moral principles, fine qualities. Whatsoever things are just. Just to you and me might be something different, but God is saying between man and man, between God and man. Like Jesus' answer that he gave, give to Caesar what is Caesar and to God what is God's. That's just. Whatsoever things are pure. Holy is another word in some different versions of the Bible that I read. And whatsoever things are pure and holy means in opposition to filth and to foolish talk, which is what I was speaking with you a little bit about earlier. You might say, oh, it's just that one movie, or it's just that one show, or it's, just that one. But it's still in there. I went to a concert last year, the first concert I've been to in my life, and in that concert, at the end, they did a song that I heard back in my teenage years, and I was able to sing the song word for word. It showed me the importance of what goes in is going to stay in there for a long time. Now, thankfully, it was a Christian concert that I went to, and it was an artist that was a rap artist, Christian, back in the day. And I remember my dad telling me, you better know what that music is saying because it's going in. So I made it a point to learn all the words and make sure it was in accordance with God's will for my life, and still is. So the main point here is about meditating. You don't want to meditate on things that are going to put stuff in you, so in times of trouble you become at unrest with what's going on around you and in the world. Let's look at a few more on here. Whatsoever things are lovely, in opposition to all contention, hatred, strife, wrath. That's whatsoever things are lovely. It's not those things, is in opposition. We need to focus on whatsoever things are of good report. Ecclesiastes 7:1 says a good name is better than precious ointment. And if there be any virtue and if there be any praise, to think on these things. I like to watch the news from time to time, but it's not always of good report, is it? The world is really at rest nowadays, and as you know, most of us suffered Hurricane Dorian here in the Abacos. So yes, it was a reality of life. Should I focus on it? Should I meditate on it? No. Whatsoever things are of good report. That's what I need to focus on. A famous scene in Peter Pan, and I know you're probably thinking that's odd, she's referencing a Disney movie, but when he's flying about and John tries it and fails, he asks Peter, how did you do that? And Peter told him, you just think lovely, wonderful thoughts and they just lift you up in the air. So to me, I tend to think that our life as Christians is like that in these verses. The only way to defeat evil and panic and anxiety, which, let's face it, all of us have some form of it, it's to train ourselves to think positive, godly thoughts by drawing on what we put into our hearts. So if you meditate on it, it's in there. In the times of trouble, you can draw on it. In the times of hot water, it draws like the tea bag did, and it pulls it out of you, the good, the lovely, and it helps calm the anxieties and the panic that are within you. But to do this, we have to meditate on these things. Be lifted up. 2 Corinthians 10:5 reminds us to demolish arguments and every pretension that sets itself up against the knowledge of God. And we take captive every thought to make it obedient to Christ. 2 Corinthians 10:5. So we must take charge of our thinking, brothers and sisters. How? Meditate on these things. Everything that the mind can focus upon is either garbage from Satan or goodness from God. What do you choose to put in you, my brothers and sisters? We are what we eat, so feast only on the things of God, praying for his discernment. Feeling like pride and selfishness tempt us to turn from God. But if we fill our minds with acceptable things from God, the opposite happens. We respond to the world as he does, as Jesus did in many examples in the Bible, following his will for our lives. So, let your heart and mind be an oasis for goodness that flows out of our times of hot water in life, versus that volcano that it explodes out of if we have not abided by his will and meditated on the good things. So, my brothers and sisters, today, remember, meditate, think on these things. I pray that God's peace be with you as you pull from what you put inside of your hearts. Amen.